Saints fans and Who-Dats from all over the world. This is Kyle T. Mosley here with the Bayou Blitz. I got my well, I tried to be his running mate, but he wouldn't let me be his running mate this year. He chose Jim Everett as his running mate. I can't believe that.
Kyle, I'm sorry. We're still waiting for election results coming in. Jim and I refuse to concede. So we're still holding out hope for a last-minute victory. And you rest assured, my friend, but both of you, for that matter, will have a cushy position in our cabinet for the next 4 years.
Man, I want no spanky cabinet. We're out. All right, that's Bob Rose. And we have a special guest, Mr. John DeShazier. What's going on, John?
Nothing much, man. You guys sound like you're having a lot of fun, so I'm pretty pleased to be a part of this.
Yeah. Well, look, John, Bayou Blitz family, this is John DeShazier. If you do not know him, I don't know where you've been. John has been covering the New Orleans Saints since, 1992, right, John?
Whew, yeah, you make me feel real low right there. Yeah, since 92.
Look, I'm right there with you, John. So
yeah, that's when I moved here. Moved here from Georgia and started doing preps in the Saints and been here ever since, man. So yeah, I've been around a lot of Saints games.
Yeah. Look, a lot of Saints games, a lot of history behind this man, and he started on the outside. Now he's on the inside of the New Orleans Saints organization.
Yeah, I started at the PICU, so that was the thing. I was at the paper and had my share of critiques of the Saints, and the opportunity came to join the organization and to see it work from the flip side, and so it's been intriguing. It's been real intriguing because you still if you've ever been a columnist or if you ever shared those kinds of opinions, you still get those strong urges every now and then. To jump in on something, and it's like, I can't say that. And so it's like, okay, I got to find another way to get that outlet because, I tell anybody, if you work for a newspaper, being a columnist outside of owning the paper, being a columnist is the best job at the paper. I mean, because, when you get to critique stuff, man, now, you got to be a little bit strong because you're going to be critiqued. Right. Not everybody likes what you do. But still, man, it's a strong position. It's fun when it's going good, and even as a columnist, man, you like to be around winning teams, and so I've been around my share of those when the columns were rolling. But now the team is just as good as some of those years. So it's been fun all the way around, man.
Well, good. Look, I remember.
Go ahead, Kyle.
No, go ahead, Bob.
Sorry to interrupt. John, I've been following your work since I was in my early 20s myself. You guys, you two only have a couple years on me. I'm really excited to have you join us tonight. But before we get started, I wanted to kind of expound on your point. As a member of the media, you worked around 3 head coaches that are notorious for media dealings. By that I mean obviously Sean Payton. Mike Ditka in the late 90s, and then certainly before that, Jim Mora. Who is the toughest coach to deal with? Who's the most intimidating?
I think it was Mora because I was younger then, and so I really didn't know him that well. Most of the guys on the beat knew him, but I didn't know him well, and so trying to get to know him, and he wasn't the type guy that you warmed up to, I guess. He just. He was a stern guy, but he wasn't real jokey. I don't want to say he wasn't friendly, but he just seemed kind of standoffish. So he was really intimidating. I mean, and he was a dude who, he just, if you know more, he doesn't really tolerate fools that much. And so, I was in on a lot of those press conferences and those happenings where he gave some of those famous quotes, man. I was there when he did the diddly poo. So he was really he was the most intimidating of them. When Sean Payton came in, I was already at the paper. I was kind of established, and he was a young guy. So, it wasn't necessarily that intimidating. Now, if you stand next to him and you hear that voice coming out of that body, and not that he's a small dude, but it's kind of a commanding presence from there. So you can see why he was the head coach, but it wasn't quite as intimidating. And to be frank, by the time Mike Ditka got here, Mike Ditka was almost a caricature of himself by the time he got here. I mean, he wasn't the Mike Ditka from Chicago. His coaching acumen certainly had deteriorated a lot by then. He was a lot more celebrity than head coach then, and you know, I thought it was a move that really set the franchise back, man. That was kind of hiring a name instead of getting the guy who really needed to get the franchise back on track. And so, you know, there was no intimidation from that standpoint. He was just kind of a guy who we knew you kind of felt like he was just passing through. So, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, think about him and Ricky doing that photo shoot for Sports Illustrated, right? Yeah. And till this day, that still makes me kind of uneasy when I look at that photo, man. Kyle,
and I get that too. But here's what aggravated me the most about Mike Ditka, and to this day, it will always aggravate me. He was a 3-13. They were 3-13 his first year. Mm-hmm. They traded all their picks for one dude like they were one player away, and I just never ever got that. That bothered me to no end when I worked for the paper. And another thing that bothered me was, okay, you're Ricky Williams, who ends up signing maybe the worst contract in sports history.
Yeah.
You're the only pick, man. How are you going to sign a bad contract? You're the only pick. All you got to do is say, okay, I want whatever the number 1 overall pick gets. That's what I want, because you're the only pick. They can't let you hold out. What you doing? So those two things bothered me and will bother me forever about that year.
Yeah. Well, you and I could talk a little bit more off the air about that, because I have some thoughts about that as well, man. I never liked that as well.
We all do, but we're trying to keep this PG-ish, right?
Yeah, because that at some point that would lead me to cuss, I'm sure.
Hey, Bob, I never told you, man, but John is the guy that before Twitter and all this other stuff, we had the NOLA.com forums. Remember that, John? Yeah. And you used to get in there and answer people's questions.
Oh, yeah, man.
And he took some heat. But John gave some heat in return.
You know, now my wife will tell you, you know, I'm kind of smart mouth. And there's only so much I can take before I say something. Now, you know, I'll make sure I don't get fired, but there's only so much I can take before. And even on Twitter, I try not to respond on Twitter. I truly do. But every now and then I just got to jump in and say something, because I'll see something that's just so ridiculous, and it'll make me say, you know what, dude, you couldn't have thought that when you tweeted that. You couldn't have believed that. And so I just, you know, I don't want to, you know, call somebody dumb, but it's almost like, you know, okay, did you really think about that? Or are you just looking for some attention? So every now and then I'll jump in there, but those forums are no, man, because, you know, one, they made us do them, and that, you know, so that made it worse because you didn't want to do it freely. And then you had to be nice. So that was just, you know, man, you know, if we got to do this, at least let me kind of, because it's, you know, and like, you know, when you write columns, you get used to critiquing, but being critiqued too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, you can take fair critique, and sometimes, you know, every now and then, you know, you'll just get one that's blistering. You'll say, you know what? Well, maybe I didn't. You know, maybe I need to go back and reread that and rethink that. Maybe this is worth considering. But, you know, every now and then you just want to strike back, man. You don't want to just be a punching bag all the time. Every now and then it's like, hey, okay, I got 2 fists too now.
Yeah. Well, look, Bob, John is the one that motivated me to start deucingreggie.com. Because he was going in on Aaron Brooks. I made the mistake and tried to defend Aaron Brooks. John lit into me, boy. I was like, I said, whoa.
Yeah. You know, see, and AB, see, here, another thing that aggravated me, AB, supremely talented player. Mm-hmm. B wanted to be a pocket quarterback. He didn't want to be seen as a running quarterback. And so my issue with him was, look, man, just win the game.
Right.
no matter how it looked, what you're here for is to win games. It got to be pretty. It doesn't have to look pristine. You don't have to, if it takes running, then do what's necessary to win. And he was determined to be a pocket quarterback, and that just didn't work for him. And it was like, dude, you're just going to be stubborn and you're going to run yourself out of the league if you keep this up. If you just tuck it and run and stop with the nonsense. Because you remember his first year, man, he was a phenom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The dude, he was, a bigger Lamar Jackson type dude. And it was like, okay, you can do something with this. But all of a sudden he was like, well, no, I don't want to do that. It's like, man, you messing up.
Yeah.
So that's what got me with him, man. And he was stubborn about it. He was extremely stubborn about it, which is why his career was shortened.
Yeah. Yeah. AB, I felt as though once Katrina hit and when he made those comments about the organization, he wrote his own tombstone there, right?
Yeah, there was no coming back. Yeah, there was no coming back from that.
Yeah. All right, John, we got a few questions out there, not only from Bob and myself, but some of the fans want to know, what are your thoughts about the Kwon Alexander trade?
If he's healthy, he can help, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, he hadn't played a full NFL season. He'll only play part of this season because they got him late. But if he's healthy, he's a proven guy who can make some plays, and you can't have too many of those guys, and he's for the right price. I don't want to I guess I could liken it somewhat to Marcus Davenport. Marcus Davenport's biggest thing is, the biggest ability is availability. And when Marcus Davenport is playing, he can be phenomenal at times. Well, Kwon Alexander needs to be on the field. That's the thing. You got to be available. And I know that's easy for me to say. I'm a dude who's, 54 and overweight, and I ain't hitting nobody, and I ain't chasing nobody. But that's your profession, man, and you got to have the body for it. And you got to make sure your body's ready for it. So if you're not available, you can't help a team. What you gonna do? As they say, you can't make the club in the tub, and you can't make no tackles from the tub either. So you got to be available, and that's the biggest thing with Kwon Alexander. If he's healthy, and they could use that linebacker depth because you got DeMario Davis who's playing all downs. Alexander Zaloni, who's had his issues with injuries in the past, but at least he's been healthy this season. And beyond those guys, you got a rookie Zach Bond, you got Craig Robertson, who you like his value as a special teamer more so than in your base or your sub packages. So Kwon Alexander can help a whole lot when he's available.
Are you surprised? Well, let me not put it that way. Let me start with. To your knowledge, were the Saints trying to make a deal for any defensive backs, whether it was a cornerback or a safety position throughout the league?
Well, this I can tell you, Bob. If there's a rock to be kicked over, they'll kick it over. They will search high and low, and sometimes the price is too much, or sometimes you'll look at a guy and everybody will say, well, take this guy, and then the value might not be there. I know and I don't want to. I hate to besmirch somebody, but a lot of people have been asking me about Earl Thomas. Mm-hmm. And what I'll tell them is, okay, there are 31 other teams that don't want Earl Thomas either. So you got to consider why it is that maybe Earl Thomas isn't wanted by any team right now for any price. Now, has his skills deteriorated? Well, of course they have. He's gotten older. But also might have to deal with, some locker room issues because there are, some things, you hear about what happened with the Ravens. Right. And so, when a dude said, when the word is he's late for a meeting because he was getting his car washed, hey, that's kind of that's not going to play well in the locker room. So, and then the Saints have a culture that they are pretty proud of. They're pretty proud of the character of guys that they have in there. Now, of course, everybody ain't going to be Boy Scouts in there, but for the most part, those guys are pretty high character, and you expect that out of them. And so, when I say something, again, I don't want to besmirch the man because I don't know him, but, there's a reason he's still out there and nobody's taking that chance. So, but in terms of looking, yeah, they look, and they're constantly looking because, look, you can't, in the NFL, especially today's NFL, you cannot possibly have too many good corners. Mm-hmm. possibly have too many good defensive linemen. You just can't have enough of them because that's the way this game is. You got to have guys who can create pressure, and you got to have guys who can cover, and you can't have too many of them. And so, if you don't have enough of them, and I don't know that any team in the NFL feels like they have enough of them, then you're always looking for them.
Yeah, that's true. And you talk about Earl Thomas. Let's talk about another guy now. He's in the NFC South, AB, right? And we're going against him. He's got his last shot in the National Football League, so to speak.
Yeah, probably.
Bruce Arians and those guys gave him one last opportunity to be able to help Tom Brady's cause in the NFC South. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll tell you what, Kyle, if he can stay on the field, he can ball, man. Now, he's been out for a while, but you saw what he did with Pittsburgh. And I mean, this is doing that when you, the other team, every fan, mamas, everybody, uncles, know you're the number one receiver. You're the guy with the target on you, and Antonio Brown can flat do it. Now, again, he's been out for a while, so what kind of shape is he in? But he played with Tom Brady for a half second in New England, so he knows some of what Brady likes, because that one game they might have targeted him about 10 times in that one game in New England when they played. But he's a phenomenal talent if he's healthy and if he's in shape. And then if you add him to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, man, that's a problem. That's a big issue, because it's hard to have a number one corner. It's hard to have two good corners. Now you're asking for three corners, and somebody's got to get on Antonio Brown in the slot. Somebody's got to fool around with Chris Godwin in the slot. Somebody's got to be fooling around with Mike Evans, and he's out there at 6'3", 6'4", and running like the wind. And so that's an issue, and that's why, again, you need a lot of corners, because you're asking dudes to hold up against those kinds of people. And you better hold up either that, or you better get to the quarterback real fast. And you better rattle him around some, because, man, that's a lot to ask. But if he's right in the head, and that's a big if. But if he's right in the head, look, man, this would probably be the time to get him, because it's his first game. Once he gets 5-6 games under him. Yeah. Once he gets 5-6 games under, it could be a whole different beast, man. So this might be the time to get him.
Well, and that big if that you brought up, John, the other side of Antonio Brown, the Mr. Hyde, is something that I have been critical of about this young man for years and years. There's only one football to go around. And we know that Mike Evans doesn't get happy, or is visibly unhappy when he doesn't get targeted enough. Gronkowski's going to get thrown too, because he's Gronkowski. And the same with Chris Godwin. How long before this really blows up in Tampa Bay? Or do you think that AB might have actually finally grown up?
Well, I will never say that I believe he's grown up, but what I do believe is he's got some economic wisdom, and he knows he better shut his mouth and finish the season if he wants another contract. Money talks, and they understand that much. And I'll say this too, though. I think all of those guys respect Tom Brady enough to where if Tom Brady comes to the sideline and says, "Be quiet, I'll get to you. Be quiet, you weren't open." I think you might not like it, but he's a 6-time Super Bowl champ, and you got to listen to him, because you feel like he'll steer you in the right direction. But I think Antonio Brown will behave just because he wants another contract. And if he blows it here, as you mentioned, this is the final stop right here. They ain't go from here. Nowhere else for him to go from here. He talked his way out of Pittsburgh, and a great situation for him. Yeah. Talked his way into Oakland and was running around, hey, this is where I want to be. Then talked his way out of Oakland, fooling around with a helmet and ice-bitten, frostbitten feet. That nonsense. And then when he talks his way out of Oakland, he's running around, grandma, my prayers have been answered. Goes to New England, and then he gets into that trouble. So he is a dude who, if there's one thing he can find trouble, and he can find the end zone. Two things. But hopefully his head's on right, because, I don't wish ill on anybody. Now, there have been times where I thought Antonio Brown should have been banned for life, to be honest with you.
Agreed.
Right.
Because he's put himself in that position. So I hope he recognizes his good fortune right now. And again, he understands, I think, because I said that before, that I thought he understood, but he didn't understand then either. So, but I think he understands this has got to be his last stop. He's got to do it right here if he wants to extend in the NFL.
Yeah, good points, John. I'm Kyle Mosley. That's Bob Rose. This is our special guest, Mr. John DeShazier, in the house from the New Orleans Saints as well as the New Orleans Pelicans organization. We just call John Slash because he does it all. He writes, he broadcasts. He does it all for the Saints organization, and Mrs. Benson loves him well. So, but just clowning, John. If you guys have any more comments, we got a couple other comments for you, John, from these guys. Here's a good one. You talked about the other side, covering AB, then Evans and Godwin, right?
Uh-huh.
Saints didn't deal for another corner. As Sean Payton usually says, he likes what he sees in his corners. What about a guy like Jonathan Joseph, who is now out on the market? Could he be somebody the Saints could be able to bring in? He's a veteran cornerback.
Well, I would imagine he'd be a consideration. Like I said, these guys, they kick over every rock. They're always looking to improve. And look, the secondary for the Saints, we know, isn't set because they're still having some issues back there. Those communication issues, and there's been at least one in every game. Now, I will say this. I thought they were better against Chicago just because even on the 50-yarder and the touchdown, I don't think those were communication issues so much as dudes just got beat. And sometimes that's going to happen in the NFL. Dude's going to beat you. But when dudes are running, naked open, 50 yards down the field, that's when you got problems. That's when you got problems. And so they, for that game, seem to have at least gotten past that, where they're just getting beat the old-fashioned way, where a dude makes a catch on you. And again, you hope in those situations that guys will get themselves in a proper position to be able to make plays out of that. So, but yeah, if you're talking about Jonathan Joseph or a host of other guys out there on the street, man, I guarantee you, if they hadn't worked them out, they probably will be working them out. They are looking at them because, like I said, man, in today's NFL, you just can't have enough good corners. You can't. If you had 6 cornerbacks that you felt really good about, that probably still wouldn't be enough, because that's just how deep the NFL is and how it's going now. I mean, you got people's number 3 receivers, man. You put those guys in the slot, those guys can ball. Guys aren't in the NFL. Marquez Callaway, before he came to training camp with the Saints, I know a whole lot about the kid. I mean, and then it wasn't a conventional training camp, so we didn't get to see him in real competition in preseason games and that kind of stuff, tackling that kind of stuff. So, you keep him, you figure, okay, he's a good special team guy. You don't know how he's going to react once you put him out there. Then they put him out there and you see, you know what? Okay, this is a dude that nobody really knew, and he can ball some. Well, that's Marquez Callaway, an undrafted rookie. Now you're talking about going out there against guys who either were drafted or guys who are veterans who can play, who can flat play. And that's so now you got to have some corners, man. Playing cornerback might be the hardest position to play in it. Imagine fooling around with these dudes while you're backpedaling, man. you running backwards and you got to shift and try to flip your hips and trail them when they're running full speed and they know exactly where they're going. It's got to be the hardest position to play in the league.
Yeah.
Oh, you factor in the rules that so heavily favor the NFL or the offenses in the NFL now. My God, I wouldn't want that job.
And the thing about that is, Bob, see, they were going, they evened they wanted to even the scales, and that's when they went with the replay, right? Okay, so you can replay pass interference, but the rest didn't want to call it.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you got this here. It's a perfectly good and legitimate way to even these scales, because these offensive guys push off. These offensive guys commit penalties. All you got to do is call it. But it was almost like the officials, like, had a silent protest against it. We're not going to call it. Whatever's called on the field is what's going to stand. It was alarming and I almost say embarrassing, the number of calls that got overturned, because it was like, look, this is clear that this is a conscious effort that y'all ain't going to overturn this stuff. This is a protest against installing that.
You saw it in the Bucs game.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I mean, that was clearly PI.
Yeah. So it was like, and that's when the coaches were like, they just kind of threw up their hands and said, you know what, they ain't gonna call it anyway. We might as well just go back the way it was. But it was a perfectly good rule addition that if they had just enforced it, it'd still be and it would have made, I think, a world of difference, because there's still a lot of tugging and grabbing and you can go both ways, but sometimes it's really, really blatant. And if they didn't call it, man, they just didn't want. If coaches were challenging it, they weren't going to uphold the challenge. They just weren't.
All right. A couple of guys want to know about Santos Garcia.
Santos Garcia.
Yeah, I have no. Oh, I don't know what Jason's talking about here. Let's go on, man. Santos is the kicker, so I don't know.
What? Santos? Cole Santos?
Santos from the Bears, the kicker.
Oh, Cairo Santos.
Yeah. What about? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, don't worry about it. Let's go on. Ted Ginn is on the market again. He finds himself out there on the market. Any chance the Saints may look at him in case something happens to one of the wide receivers down the line?
Well, again, another possibility, because he's been here before. And one thing Ted Ginn can do still is run. He can run fast. He can take the top off. He can make it easier for guys underneath. And you always can use that type of guy. That's kind of, some of the things that Emmanuel Sanders can do. It looks like Callaway might be able to do some of that. We know Deontay Harris can do it, but Deontay Harris doesn't play a lot of snaps. But to have a veteran guy like Ted Ginn to do it would be helpful, especially because he's a veteran and he already understands and knows the system and has some chemistry with Drew Brees. So it would be interesting to see if he were to be brought back, because, like I said, you can put him in and he could literally and figuratively hit the ground running. And again, you get a guy who can take the top off. It makes a difference for your offense, because now guys look at Ted Ginn Jr. and all of a sudden DB saying, okay, we got to back up. We got to get back some. We got to give him some space. He might be old, but we got to give him some space.
Okay, John.
I can say that about Ted because I know his dad, and his dad's real cool, and I know Ted, so I can say that. Ted knows he's old, man, but Ted can still run.
Yeah, he can.
He's faster than me. Go on.
So, hey, listen, Michael Thomas is back at practice. Saints activated Emmanuel Sanders from the reserve COVID list today. It seems like both of those guys are on track to play on Sunday. Is that what your feeling is? You think we'll get both back in the lineup against Tampa Bay?
I think they will, and I think they're going to be needed because Tampa Bay's secondary is pretty good. It's a lot better than it was last year. I think both of those guys will be needed. Now, the thing is, conditioning-wise, what kind of shape are they in? Michael Thomas hadn't played a game since the first week.
Yeah.
He's been sidelined with an ankle and a hamstring, and so he had, the reps. Emmanuel Sanders has been, in quarantine. So he, it's easy when you're an elite athlete. I would imagine it's fairly easy to fall out of shape. Not just disrepair, but when you're tip top, one of the top 5% of athletes, it probably doesn't take a whole lot to fall out of it. And so to get those guys back in practice, and you get in practice, and it's practice can be difficult, but it's hard to simulate a game.
Yeah,
it just is. And I don't care how many reps you run, simulating the game is different. So I expect both of them to be back. I expect both of them to probably not be at their peak, so they probably won't play all the snaps. But what Mike Thomas is if you need 3rd and 8, Mike's gonna get that big body in front of somebody and probably catch it. And Anders, however many reps he gets, he still can get increases and he can still find gaps in zones. So you hope both of those guys are out there because they're gonna need them all, man. It's the Saints have been going without all their weapons for several weeks now. In Chicago against that defense without both of those receivers and Callaway. So that's 3 of your top 4 receivers.
Right.
Basically, just have to kind of chip away and say, okay, this is how we're going to have to win today. That takes a lot out of you. So, you need those guys just because you need something easy sometimes. You just need, some chunk plays. You got to have something easy sometimes. It can't all be 10, 12, 14 play drives, touchdowns in the NFL. That is hard to do. Man, that's hard to do.
Yeah. A lot of people have been talking about Drew Brees and this air under the ball and all this foolishness. My thing is, it's more like everybody from the outside would like to see the style points of Drew Brees versus the substance. Is he winning? That's all I'm looking at. I see the W's on the board and what he's been able to do 5 straight games before the end of halftime. It has been outstanding as well. Do you think it's much to do about nothing? It's Drew Brees, and he didn't have all of his arsenal at his disposal. What's your thoughts?
Kyle, I'd just say amen and shut up because here's the thing. See, people, as you said, get caught up on that sexy stuff. How far did it travel in the air? And winning is the ultimate goal. But 2, if you want to throw it deep, okay, well, a couple of things got to happen. 1, you got to protect because it's going to take a little bit longer. 2, you got to find the right coverage. If you get in the wrong coverage, you just can't heave it up because, see, now Saints fans probably don't remember this, because, we got notoriously bad memories about some things. Now, last year, Jameis Winston, playing for Tampa Bay, threw 30 interceptions. And Jameis threw some ill-advised deep passes. And the Saints fans were, giggling about that. Hey, ha, 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 ha. Well, it's funny, but, you don't just throw it up for grabs just for the heck of it, man, just to say, okay, we threw one deep. Drew Brees, he isn't going to do that because you don't want to turn it over because, possession of the football is precious. You'd rather on 3rd and 8 get a 6-yard gain and punt, throw it 30 yards down the field for a pick. Because you can punt, put your defense out there, hope you can get a stop, hope you can get the ball back. But those turnovers always are a great indicator of who wins and loses a game. And Drew Brees just ain't going to throw one out there just for the heck of it to say I throw one out there. Again, he'd rather chip it down the field than just throw it there. But, a lot of factors got to go and come into play when you want to throw a deep pass. If it's Patrick Mahomes throwing the cheetah, or Mecole Hardman and them dudes, they got 8 guys who can run deep, and then they protect well, and then Patrick Mahomes might run out of the pocket and buy another 5 seconds.
Right.
Drew Brees, he doesn't run out of the pocket and buy 5 seconds like that. So you got to have a good force. You got to have a good force field around him. Give him a nice pocket, and then you got to have the play develop. And sometimes it just isn't as easy as that. So he'll take the check down guy. And if your check down guy is Alvin Kamara, there's worse things in life.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's one of the best things that we have going for us, right? Look, man, Alvin Kamara is playing lights out. Very outstanding year. I heard you ask him a couple of questions today. I think he is on the verge of an MVP type of year, but that usually goes to the quarterbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
How about offensive player of the year? Would it be that he's a more suited candidate for that one and might have the Saints to have 2 in a row?
Absolutely, he is. Now, when you're talking about awards like that, people look at numbers. So, and he's got a healthy amount of touchdowns. He's going to have to get some more touchdowns. But his production and his value to the Saints have been off the charts. And he's, Alvin's one of those dudes, man, it's strange. The first guy rarely gets him. It's hard to get him off his feet. And he rarely takes a squared up hard shot. Alvin knows how to get skinny when it's time to get skinny. If he needs to, get a little big, he knows how to get a little big. I mean, he can just he's got an instinct about playing football that, people always say, they compare him to Marshall Faulk for a lot of reasons. And one of the things you hear about Marshall Faulk was he was one of the smartest players that you can find. And Alvin's that kind of guy. He's really, really intelligent in life and football wise, where he just understands, what to do. And, some of his instinct, the guy obviously studies too, but, watching him work, you see him sometimes and it's like, okay, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't, the touchdown he had against Green Bay, that shouldn't have happened. That, who does
unreal. It was
unreal.
That?
That shouldn't have happened. But, he just kind of gliding, and it's like, everybody else is running as hard as they can, and Alvin's just kind of gliding like, he's just like, there's a peripheral vision and a feeling about him where he just feels other people and where they are. And,
right.
he knows how to get skinny when he needs to get skinny and squeeze through. And the watch, man. His rookie year, we were like, who is this dude? What is this dude? And then the second thing, we were like, what was Tennessee doing to not give it to him every play? Because if I'd have been, he'd have never been that fresh to get to the NFL. If I'd have been the coach of Tennessee, I'd have wore him out.
Yeah. Well, think about this, man. He sat in the backfield with Derrick Henry and what's that other big guy? They had like four all-star running backs in that Alabama backfield his freshman year.
Yeah, he had Derrick Henry. He had was Kenyon Drake there too?
Kenyon Drake was there, and
I can't think of the other one. Yeah, I can't think of the other one. And he
Lacey, or was it that before? I'm thinking it was Eddie Lacy, guys.
Yeah, had dread.
It might have been Lacey. It might have been Lacey.
Yeah.
And look, if he'd have stayed there and they'd got him on the field, he'd have been phenomenal. And he talks about his situation there where it just wasn't a fit. It just wasn't a fit for him. And sometimes, it isn't a fit for a guy. And like I said, if I'd have been the coach of Tennessee and I'd have seen that kid, I'd have been like, you know what? We got to get it. It's college. We got to get it in his hands 28 times a game. Whether that's punt returns, kick returns, catches and runs, but we got to get it in his hands 28 times a game, because if you get it him 28 times a game, you're guaranteed probably 250 all-purpose yards, I would imagine. I'd have run him in the ground.
Yeah.
I'd have run him in the ground.
All right, JD. All right, guys. This is John DeShazier with us here at the Bayou Blitz. He has time for a little bit more questions. They want to know about Ty Montgomery, as well as is Callaway going to be playing?
I'll ask him the second one first. I believe Callaway's going to be playing. He was at practice today, even though it was limited, but I think he's going to be playing. So I would put a yes on that one. Ty Montgomery, I don't know with that one, Kyle. I really don't. When he started out and he looked really, really good, and then he got hurt. And so then, because there was one game early in the season, I was like, you know what? I think Ty Montgomery is gonna shine in this game, because I think it was the Raiders game, because I was like, it just feels like he's gonna shine because he can do so many things, but there just hadn't been room for him to do those things. And I think probably a lot of that has to do with keeping Alvin on the field, because Alvin's been phenomenal. And then if you spell Alvin with Latavius, that kind of gives you your contrast. And you want to use Ty Montgomery. Well, I thought they would have used him some at receiver, but that's when he got hurt. And so, okay, now it's a tough fit to get back in, because you can't really use him as a returner, because now Callaway can do that if Deontay Harris can't. So now it's like, okay, where do you fit him? And I just don't know where he fits right now.
Good point. Bob.
I want to go to the big uglies up front, John, if that's okay. You mentioned Drew Brees needs a force field in front of him, and that Saints offensive line has certainly given that to him more often than not through his career. And we've seen Cesar Ruiz play better, I think, better and better each week. Is Nick Easton going to get back onto the field, barring injury, or is this Ruiz's job finally?
It's Ruiz's, Bob. It's Ruiz's. That's why they drafted him. And Nick Easton was, as valuable an offensive lineman through the first 4 or 5 games as the Saints have, because he was able to flip back and forth between the guard spots. He can also play center. But he's I don't want to say Wally Pipp, but they drafted Cesar Ruiz to play and really drafted him to play center. And he was starting to play some center in training camp, and then he got hurt. And so Eric McCoy had to move back from right guard to center. You might as well leave him there because he started, all 16 games last year at center. But Ruiz isn't coming out of the lineup unless he gets injured, because that's what he's in for. He gives you that bulk and strength. Because if you think back, the really, really productive years, well, not really productive because Drew Brees had a lot of productive ones, but some of the greatest ones were Jari Evans at right guard and Carl Nix at left guard. Well, if you've got Andrus Peat at left guard, who's a huge guy, you got Cesar Ruiz at right guard, and you got Eric McCoy at center. That is a formidable 3 in front of Drew Brees. And Drew's a little short, so he needs to be able to step up in the pocket and needs to have a clear line of sight. And those 3, you hope, can continue to give him that. So, Ruiz is a little bit bigger and stronger than Nick Easton, and Nick Easton's got some scrap in him now, and he will be good as. If somebody goes out, Nick Easton will fill in and it'll be seamless. But Ruiz, I remember draft night, they were like, look, we picked this dude to play. and if he hadn't hurt his ankle, he'd have started game 1 if he hadn't hurt his ankle.
Yeah. Any word on Rankins?
Yeah, it's an ankle injury. He didn't practice today, and if you don't practice Wednesday, Thursday or so, it looks a little bleak for the game. I didn't even see it happen on the field, but I did see him walk off. But then I saw on Twitter or something where they were saying that the network was saying it was so ugly they didn't even want to show it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, but he walked off. So how So I didn't see it, so I can't really say what it was like. Now like I was home watching Dallas when Dak Prescott went down, and I was like, oh God, he ain't.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see that with Sheldon. Even when he snapped his Achilles, you could tell immediately. It was like, nah, that's not good. But I didn't see it with this one, so I don't know what his time frame is. Like I said, he didn't go today. If he doesn't go on Thursday, then I would start leaning toward he probably won't be playing.
All right. John, you have seen and firsthand witnessed a lot of good games, right? If you had to look at the Drew Brees and Sean Payton combination over the past 15 seasons, you saw Hazlitt and those guys make a run at it. You talked about the craziness from Ditka and Mora. But if you had to point to a couple of memorable games, what would those games be for you?
Well, I mean, you go to the all-time favorite, the Dome reopening game. That's got to be on the top of the list because and for me, more so than the game, it was just the idea that New Orleans was open for business again. And I guess the struggle of seeing people, trying to rebuild their homes, trying to rebuild their lives, blue roofs still all over the place. The city still wasn't, fully, with electricity, and the Saints were playing, and it was, when that thing came, man, look, all kinds of dudes, me included, standing in the press box with tears in our eyes because it was amazing.
Yeah.
That would be top of the charts. And then, of course, Super Bowl because, it was. And more so, the ambush, because I was like, what, this dude, they're brass, that was, so I remember seeing that. And I remember as soon as the Saints recovered, I said, okay, they're going to win. Because, that was one of those where, he told the players before, okay, we're going to do this, but make me right. Well, when they made me right on that play, I was like, okay, they're going to win this game because there's no way you can lose after you do that. Yeah. So that one stands out. I'll tell you what. Now I hate to bring up a loss, but the playoff game against San Francisco in fourth, man, that, for entertainment value, that you won't find better than that game.
Mm-hmm. Bob and I say that all the time. That's one of the best games ever played, and people don't really give it much credit.
Man, that thing was so crazy because it was like, okay, they got it. Okay, they don't got it. Okay, they got it. Okay, they don't got it. Okay, they got it. It was back. I mean, it was so crazy. It was one of the most entertaining games I have ever seen in the NFL. So, those three right there jump immediately out for me. Now, I'll tell you what, and I shouldn't mention this loss, but I got to just because of the aftermath. When Cleveland got its re-entry victory against Ditka's, and the picture of Ditka laying face down on the turf in the Superdome. And here's the thing, I didn't see it live because I was writing columns for the paper, right? So my editor tells me on that day I have to write a column from Cleveland's perspective. So I'm ticked off because I'm like, why do I have to go to the losing locker room, man? I don't want to go to the losing locker room. So I'm down on the field, Cleveland's end of on Cleveland's end of the field on the far end zone. Next thing I see Tim Couch roll back. I see him just heave one up, and the next thing I know, Tim Couch rips off his helmet and starts running around. So I don't see it. They don't show the replay on the jumbotron because you ain't gonna show that at the home game. And so the only thing I get is like later on I see the pictures of Ditka laying face down in the sequence of it, and so I was like, see a loss, man, but these are some of the best pictures I've ever seen in my life. So that game, that one stands out to me too, just because I was ticked off because I thought I was going to the losing locker room, and then I see Tim Couch running around like a wild man, and I'm like, did they catch that? And I'm like, no, that doesn't happen. That couldn't have happened.
Look, that was only a loss that New Orleans could do, right? Only when we lose in glorious fashion.
See now that to me almost epitomized the Ditka years. That is a snapshot of the Ditka years there.
Yeah. Okay, we got one guy. He wants to know, what about beast mode, the beast quake?
Well, that one, that was a good game, but I'm still, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say ticked off, but it still bothers me that the Saints had that record and had to go on the road to play a division champ with that record. And so I always felt like the Saints got jobbed out of that one because it was like, and the whole winning the division and wild card process. But man, when your record is that, you don't deserve to host a home playoff game, and then the Saints play well and don't win that game, and then all those dudes missing those tackles. So that one is not. I won't say it's a sore spot, but yeah, it might be a sore spot.
Gotcha. Bobo, any questions?
Oh gosh, I mean, we could talk history all night. You guys know that. But that 2011 San Francisco 2012 San Francisco playoff game. That's just one more reason for us older guys to hate the 49ers, right? I know people talk about Atlanta, and I hate them too, but I have every bit the hatred for the San Francisco 49ers. I close my eyes. I still see Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Steve Young, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, etc. And then you have to go and heat that 2012 playoff game on us? Come on now.
See, and Bob, when you mentioned Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, the bad part about that is some of the best teams in Saints franchise history just happened to come along at the wrong time.
Exactly, right.
Happened to come along at the wrong time. I mean, because nobody in the NFL, underlined and highlight and boldface and capitalize, played those San Francisco 49ers better than the Saints.
You're so right.
Yeah, nobody played them better. If you could have put the Saints over in the AFC, that would have been the team that would have been playing the 49ers in the Super Bowl.
Probably more than one, like you said.
Yeah. Let's stay on that track, right? Drew Brees is about to go against Mr. Tom Brady, right? And we know Tom has his 6 rings and 9 Super Bowl appearances. Drew only has his one for one. You look at their careers, Drew's 41, Tom's 59? I still can play. I still can play.
But he still got the model looks now. He still got the model looks.
Look, I saw that dye in his hair now, JD.
I'm sure he got a little something up there. I'm sure, you know.
She doesn't want him with that in the gray like this, man.
Well, look here, if anybody's got some product, I'm sure Giselle's got some product.
Oh yeah. She makes sure he's looking good. But look, man, you have to think and you have to wonder that Drew Brees, if he had a better complement of defense on the other side a few of those years, that those guys would have possibly saw one another in Super Bowls.
Oh, absolutely. If he had a better defense, they'd have won in the year against San Francisco. But because everything aligned, man. I mean, the next game would have been a home game because what was it? The Giants beat the Packers.
Yeah.
Something funky happened to where the next game would have been a home game. So, you know, they'd have won it that year. And for a lot of people's money and memory, that was the best offense in Saints franchise history.
Yes.
Those dudes were unstoppable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you would think that if he'd had, you know, a little bit better support, because some of those years, man, look, it was Drew and a prayer. It was, you know, and you knew he felt the pressure of it because it was almost like if the offense doesn't score every time, they couldn't win because they couldn't stop anybody. And so if Drew Brees made a mistake, the Saints couldn't win that game. If he threw a pick, they couldn't win that game because they needed every possession because they had to score on just about every possession. And so there's been a lot of weight on his shoulders, man. But, Brady will always be the golden guy of the NFL because he's got the 6 rings, you know, and that's, you know, Drew'd have to play another 8 years to get 5 more rings. And I don't think that's going to happen. So, you know, but I think for both of them. And I think, you know, probably, I don't know if Drew made more than Brady because Drew was, you know, 2nd round pick, almost 1st round pick, and Brady was 6th round pick. But few players or people have squeezed more out of their ability and potential than Drew Brees. You know, 6 foot, you know, and that's probably, and I might be a little generous, 6 foot tall, 200 pounds. You know, never had the rocket arm, never was, you know, Drew Brees is a really, really good athlete.
Yeah.
But he's never been super athletic on the football field. In terms, you know, he's always been a guy, and even when he does move, he's moving to look to throw. He ain't moving to look to run.
Right.
But, you know, he's gotten a lot out of his abilities, man. And he really has kind of, I don't want to say cornered the market, but man, he's one of those dudes who figured out early, okay, I got to do things to maintain my body. And when you shred your shoulder the way he did, and to be able to come back and to be able to produce the numbers he has since he did that, it's a phenomenal testament to just the guy he is and the work ethic and all the good things that you can say about a guy. And you know, now saying all that, he'll have the passing yards when he retires, and he'll probably keep it unless Brady plays another couple more years after that. He might have the touchdown record. Him, Brady going back and forth on that. But man, he's had a phenomenal career. You'd love for him to have won more Super Bowls, but you know, unfortunately, he had some years where he just didn't have enough defense to do it.
Yeah.
Now, John, you look at the Saints now, and I think that we'd all be in agreement when we'd say, you know, if you had to point out the biggest flaw for the Saints, it's probably been in the secondary. You look through the other legitimate contenders in the NFC, including these guys that we're going up against on Sunday, and every single one of them has probably a fixable flaw. But in your estimation, which of the contenders have the most easily fixable flaw on the road to the Super Bowl, as it stands at midseason anyway?
Well, Tampa Bay's probably, I think, is the most fixable because Tampa Bay's, to me, is the run game.
Mm-hmm.
They've really gotten good in the secondary. They got a couple of linebackers who are, you know, just animals, and they stop the run, but they don't run it well. And I think that's the thing that can be fixable, especially if your passing game's right, because now, you know, you spread defenses out and you create some natural, you know, gaps and seams, and you'll probably be able to run it better. So I think that's the easily the most easily fixable thing. Green Bay, I saw Green Bay play against who just undressed them. Was it Tampa Bay? Tampa Bay just
a couple weeks back,
Vikings.
Oh, the Vikings too, and it was like, okay, I'll tell you this: if you can't stop the run, you can't win in the NFL. Not big, and they looked like they were either Dalvin Cook was the second coming of I don't know who, or they just can't stop the run, and I don't think they can stop the run, and that's something that's this deep in the season, because stopping the run is a physical thing, Bob. That's some want to. That's some we got to get up in here and get into somebody. And if you can't do that, man, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to win. I think the Saints' flaw, the secondary, if it's just communication, because we saw these dudes in training camp, and it was like they were phenomenal. Jack Abbott and Marshawn Lattimore looked like they could be the best cornerback tandem in the league. PJ Williams and Patrick and P-Rob, Patrick Robinson, looked like they were phenomenal backups. So it was like, okay, they're really deep at corner. CJ Gardner-Johnson looks really good as a kind of jack of all trades guy. Malcolm Jenkins looks pretty good. And then you got Marcus Williams. And so it was like, okay, this could be something. And when you see them, 6 games into the season, people running free, that is a concern because, Sean Payton said it himself, it's hard in the NFL for guys to get that open. And you don't normally, you might see a dude fall down or something and somebody get that open. Or you might see 2 dudes run into each other and a guy get that open.
Yeah.
Everybody's on their feet and the guy's 10 yards behind everybody. That's hard to see. So you would think a communication thing would be something that they solve, and yet, it happened to me up until the Chicago game. Like I said, in the Chicago game, I thought they just got beat a couple of times, and they were in position, just got beat, and you can live with that. It's the mental bust that you can't live with. So I would think those 3, might have the most easily fixable areas to me.
Yeah. One of the guys said, what about the Seattle Seahawks secondary?
Seattle can't stop anybody, man. And so it's Russell Wilson got to score. Russell Wilson and DK, man, DK Metcalf is he? What is
Superman. He? Superman or Batman, whatever he is, in that body. Ooh.
Yeah, what is he? So,
somebody morphed Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara together and put him in DK Metcalf's uniform.
Yeah, and then give him like Ted Ginn speed. I mean, he's the breed. He's and again, a guy who was obviously poorly coached in college. Because how do you not take? What in the world? What coach can take advantage of that? So,
yeah.
I digress.
It's unreal. I think at that draft, man. And I remember watching the scouting combine, man, I was like, God, you got to take this guy, the size, everything. You can possibly, coach him up, right? If you put him in the right situation. I think he would have been great with the Saints.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be great anywhere, man. I guess, and you see the thing that scares you is you see all that big package and you don't see the production and you say, okay, well, is this going to be the Mike Mamula? Is this going to be the Andre Bruce? Is this going to be, the dude who looks the part and never ever gives it? And so that's the thing that scares you. And now that he's giving it to you, it's like, oh my God, because that's the new wave. That's the next breed, man. That's some laboratory concoction that came out because that's the one that God looked at and touched him and say, okay, you're the one. Because he's freakish, man. He is. I hadn't seen anything like him. I will say this. I had the privilege of walking next to Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry is about as big as a wall. I mean, Derrick Henry is an impressive human being, man. I'm telling you, I felt real small standing next to Derrick. I mean, I looked up and I was like, that's a running back.
The speed at running back.
Man, this dude, I would, if he gets to the second level, that would be that's a business decision. decision. That's do I want to get, do I want to keep playing or do I want to get hurt?
Yeah. They say Metcalf is like Megatron 2.0. Yeah. He kind of reminds you of Calvin, Calvin Johnson.
He's bigger than Calvin. He's bigger and I would assume strong. I mean, he looks like he's been chiseled out of something.
Yeah.
Megatron was a big dude, but he was not chiseled like this dude. This dude's he could be a body model or something. He could, he looks like, I'm telling you, he's the new breed. He's something totally different.
That's awesome, man. All right, JD, before we wrap up with you, man, tell us about the game. Give us a quick preview and your opinion of the game on Sunday.
Well, the Saints going to need all the guys. They were able to get by Chicago, Detroit, the Chargers without their full complement. They're going to need Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders against Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay's secondary is pretty good. And if Tampa Bay's defense knows that they don't have to give you any extra attention at your receivers, which they probably wouldn't if Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders don't play, then they can just get up in the box and really get into you. And that'll make life real hard for Alvin Kamara. This is going to be a tough one, man, because if you can't get to Tom Brady and get him off his marks and hit him, you got to hit him some and get him up. Then it's tough to beat him because there's nothing he hadn't seen, right. And he got those kinds of weapons. If you're the Saints, the recipe is the same. You shut down the run, you get some pressure on the quarterback, you see what happens there. On defense, your secondary's got to hold up. Marshawn Lattimore plays Mike Evans as well as any human being plays a receiver. Can he do it again? Because Marshawn's been a little inconsistent this year, but he always gets up for Mike Evans because they can't stand each other.
Can't stand each other. What is it that CJ is saying to these guys, man?
Well,
everyone in.
CJ's a little chatty. He's a little confident, and so he can probably get under your skin a little bit. CJ is this guy. When you play him with him and he's on your team, you love him. If you play against him, you can't stand his guts. Yeah. And so you're fortunate to have him on your team because he's got there's a lot of stuff he can do, man. He can cover. He'll hit you. He brings the attitude that you need on the defense, where we're not going to back up. We're not going to back down. We don't care what you got. We're going to hit you. We're going to hit you hard. And so, yeah, I've seen him get on people's nerves. I've witnessed this personally, him getting on people's nerves. And it's fun to watch. It ain't fun if you're the guy he's after. I've seen him do it. And you know what? He rarely, I hadn't seen him like cheap shot people doing it. It's just, he's chatty. And I don't know what he's saying during that chattiness, but whatever it is, it's enough to get under your skin because, he gets under people's skin.
Yeah. We got one of our fans say he's like the Draymond Green of the NFL.
If Draymond Green was half that physical, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, man, he's something to watch. You watch him, even in game, you watch him in game, he make a play, one, he's going to let the dude know it. But I don't necessarily know if it's talking bad about the dude. It just might be, you can't get away from me. Or I don't know what it is he's saying. I don't know what it is he's saying. Now I did see some they rewound and show some stuff that happened in Chicago. But again, snatching the dude's mouthpiece is not the equivalent of 2 punches. So I don't know what else he said to that dude, but whatever it was, he got under his skin.
Now, did those guys play against one another in the SEC?
They might have. I don't, because that's Javon Mims. Where did he play?
Baylor.
Georgia, right? Was it?
He played at Baylor.
Baylor.
So whatever it was, it happened during the game. And again, there's no telling what CJ said, but whatever it is, he can, I don't know if he, because the elite trash talkers like go through people's bios and stuff.
Yeah.
And find stuff. Either that or, they just got real good mouths and, you get on the field and they got some good stuff to say. They'll just make it up on the fly. I don't know which one CJ is, but whichever one he is, he's really good at it because, he's just an adjutant. You can see him getting on people's nerves as the game progresses. And, you just figured at some point somebody's going to lose their cool, and it worked out in their favor. They get to pick the next play. But, he's just one of those dudes, man. I think Alvin said today, if you get into a fight, you want him on your side.
Yeah.
you want him on your side. And you also want Jackrabbit because Jackrabbit jumped to the case in that game.
Yeah.
Jackrabbit, all the Pahokee, Florida came out in him. Jackrabbit is quick.
Man, it was so funny because I was thinking about that when he jumped on that guy. I said, that's what all those linemen should have been doing for Andy Dalton. And and I was just like, you got to protect your teammate. If
man,
you got to. There's
a lot of people you don't protect. Your quarterback, you don't let your quarterback get hit like that. That does not happen.
Yeah, definitely. All right, JD. How do you see this game going down?
Well, I think it's going to be close. It's going to go down to the wire. I think there might be some weather involved. So, this could be the Saints. I know have a better special teams unit. And I think special teams, which played in Chicago, might do something in this one too. Of course, I work for the Saints, so I ain't going to ever pick the Saints.
I know you can't.
But I think if Mike Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders are back, it makes it a much more even fight because now you got something that you can go up against that defense with, and it ain't, not to say that they won with smoke and mirrors, but you got your big number one receiver, and you got your number two receiver, and you got your Jared Cook, and you got your Alvin Kamara, and now you feel real good about what you can put out there against that defense. So if the Saints are fully complemented, fully healthy, I think they can get out of there with a win. I think they can score 27 or so and get out of there with a win.
Cool. Bob, any last questions?
No, man. I mean, I've been a fan of you for so long. It's just so great to have you on the show with us. I hope we can do this again, but yeah, I've had a blast tonight. I hope we've done all right with you.
Man, it's been great. You guys, all you got to do is let me know. I'm glad you guys would even consider having me back because sometimes I've been some places and they don't want me back.
Man, you are more than welcome to come back. Look, you went to it's a Georgia State College.
Georgia College. I went to Georgia College. Yeah, not Georgia. Will Lutz went to Georgia State in Atlanta. I went to Georgia College in Milledgeville, Georgia.
Georgia College and University, right?
Yes.
So you and I have a common thread there because I sent my niece to that college. Yeah, she graduated from that college. She's now in Philadelphia now, man. But she went there, and you're from Macon, right?
Yep.
Another common thing, my roommate for 2 years at Morehouse was from Macon.
Wow, man. It's a small world. It's a small world, man.
And you Phi Beta Sigma, correct?
Yes, sir. All day. Spring 85. Made me feel old.
Quite a few of my boys are Phi Beta Sigma. So, yeah, awesome.
Yes, sir. Good men.
All right, JD. Well, thank you so much for being able to join us tonight. Again, you're a part of our alumni, even if the Saints say, hey, don't talk to Kyle. You on the side. Because I get banned by those guys every now and then. So anyway, we'll talk about that one other time. Man, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me, Kyle, Bob. Hey, best wishes to you, man, and good health.
Same to you and your family. Take care.
All right. Take care, guys.
All right. That was John DeShazier of the New Orleans Saints, as well as the New Orleans Pelicans organization. That was fun, man. That was fun.
Oh gosh, yeah. And I mean, like I said, I've always loved his work. In every aspect of media he's been in. I didn't realize he was so funny. It was hard to keep a straight face during some of his stories there. From an analyst point of view too, he gave us some absolutely great stuff to look forward to, not only for this Sunday's game against Tampa Bay, but to look for from the Saints the rest of the way this year.
Sure did. All right, let's see. We got the Saints against the Buccaneers. Bobo, tell me, what's your thoughts?
I'll tell you the matchup that I've been looking at, and obviously our preview pieces at Saints News Network are going to come throughout the rest of the week, so we're going to cover this from every angle that we can all think of. But I really like the way the Saints offensive line matches up against the Buccaneers defensive line. They've had success in the last 3 or 4 matchups against them, New Orleans against Tampa Bay, that is. And Vita Vea is out for the year. McClendon, the defensive tackle that Tampa Bay just traded for, I think he'll be in the lineup now. I think he's cleared all COVID-19 protocols. But William Golston has been placed on the reserve COVID list. That news just came out today. So that thins out their edge rush core. And Ndamukong Suh is playing balls out. And we know how talented and dangerous Pierre-Paul, JPP, and Shaq Barrett are on the edges. But Ramczyk and Teron Armstead have always played really well against JPP and Barrett, especially Barrett the last couple of matchups. And I really love the way, and John kind of backed us up on this, I really love the way the Saints are playing on the interior line. So if that matchup comes to fruition, like I think it will, and the Saints are able to dominate the line of scrimmage, that does give them that wall, that fortress that they need in front of Drew Brees for those receivers to get open, and for all that for that all-important running game. Although Tampa Bay's linebackers are athletic monsters, they're also a little bit lightweight. So you get an Andrus Peat or an Eric McCoy bearing down on them, that's going to spring a Latavius Murray or Alvin Kamara for a couple games. And I do think I agree with what you said earlier. I think it's absolutely vital to have Sanders and or Michael Thomas, preferably both in the lineup. But to have both of them back in the lineup, it allows you to spread out that Tampa Bay secondary. So I think that the New Orleans is going to be able to move the football. I agree with what John said, and I said it on Jordy Hultberg's show yesterday. I think New Orleans has a very underrated but very distinct advantage on the special teams. And that played a big part in the Chicago victory that went under the radar to some people. Defensively, you got to hit Tom Brady. That's all there is to it. You got to hit Tom Brady and communicate better on the back end. If those two things happen, I think they could stop the run. And I like the Saints' chances in this game, but it's going to be tight.
Did you see how the Giants played those guys?
Exactly. They played Tom Brady how they've always played Tom Brady. And they hit him, and they came after him with interior pressure. And I have, by the way, boss, I have the Saints defensive preview ready for edit. But I meant to text you earlier.
Okay, no problem. Gotcha.
But I highlighted that in the piece and exactly how you pointed out. And the Giants should have won that game.
Yeah,
they would have won that game if they had anybody else other than Daniel Jones at quarterback and the pass interference, the non-pass interference call at the very end is just beyond ridiculous. But the Giants defense put themselves in position to win that game because they did what you have to do against Tom Brady. You beat him up. You made him think twice before pump faking and holding on to the ball for that extra second. That's something that New Orleans did successfully for most of the game in week 1.
Right. And not only that, that's the how you take care of Brady. But the running game, I was like, hold on. Giants was just at will at sometimes running against these guys. I know we can take advantage of that situation, right?
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And I on that note, I wasn't watching the whole the whole Bucs Giants game, but I flipped on enough. But yeah, I noticed the same thing. And it's not like the Giants were coming at him with Saquon Barkley or anybody like that.
It was Goldman. I think that's his name, Goldman.
Goldman, kid from Clemson.
Yeah.
The Saints have a much better core of running backs and definitely a better offensive line than the New York Giants. So, yeah, like I said, I like the Saints matchup on the offensive side of the ball for sure.
Yeah. One thing that still concerns me is we already talked about the secondary, right? But what is concerning to me is the fact that Sean Payton gets away from the run at points of the game where the run has really helped them out, right? And you saw that, was it the first drive? Yeah, the first drive against Chicago. The run was taking them down the field. Then all of a sudden, 3 screen passes.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, it was just bewildering to me. 3 screen passes, you know. Okay. All right. I'll talk about that later in a column. I'll just unleash that way. Special teams. Deontay Harris has been lights out when he's healthy. You can see it. He's performing at a very good pace, not only offensively, but of course, special teams. I'm surprised the Saints haven't taken any shots down the field with him.
I am a little bit too. I think the wind in Chicago kind of nullified that opportunity. But that was the first Saints outdoor game for the year for the Saints. So like you said, they've been playing in a dome and in controlled environment earlier, every game before that. And obviously they'll be outdoors again against Tampa. But you have to believe that at some point in time, Deontay Harris, and John pointed it out earlier this evening. Deontay Harris is a speed demon. He is the guy to take the top off a defense. Mm-hmm. So you have to believe that they're going to take a shot in a big moment at some point in time.
Here's another thing that's not puzzling to me, but I know Taysom was hitting that lead draw play to the left, right? Mm-hmm. I wonder if Taysom, just like they did in the Vikings game, will be able to one-time drop back and actually throw a pass. You know, let's be honest, Bob. If you're going to say this is the guy that you believe can be able to take over the spot for Brees, right? You have him number 2 on your depth chart as well. Call some shots. And some of those run plays, I think you have set up the NFL enough to be able to think as soon as he gets in the backfield, that's all he's going to do.
Right.
I think this might be one of those games where they could take advantage of that particular setup and be able to call a shot or two or just catch a defense off guard. So that's just a few thoughts on my old noggin here. Okay. So, Bob, when we look at the game, you gave up some good points. Any last thoughts before we sign off?
No, I mean, I can't. You know what? I'd actually like to expound on your Taysom point a little bit. Like you said, we've seen that Taysom Hill has the arm strength. He may not have the accuracy. I don't believe he possesses the capability to read defenses at an NFL level from the pocket. But what you're asking them to do is something that I've been waiting for them to do too, and I think they're setting it up. I was waiting for them to spring it on Chicago on Sunday. You're not asking them to read a defense with the play that Kyle Mosley is calling for the New Orleans Saints in this formation. You're asking them to make one read to your deep guy. If that read isn't there, you do what Taysom Hill does. You tuck it under and you run, and you get what you can. And if you hit on it, or even if you make Tampa Bay think about it, that will loosen up those safeties against your running game a little bit. And it's bound, you may or may not hit it for a big play. But like I said, it would be enough to make defenses think about it if you pull the trigger on it. Mm-hmm. Sean Payton always seems to have something up his sleeve against Tampa Bay. We've seen it countless times before. Usually it's on offense. Every now and then it's a fake punt or something like that. So you might be barking up the accurate tree on this one, Mr. Mosley.
Wouldn't it be kind of special if Jameis Winston came off the bench for a play or two. I'm just saying. Wouldn't that be something?
And then
right?
That'd be so Sean Payton too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. Saints won the game in overtime. Drew Brees is leading the league in passing efficiency, completion rate again. Again. If he completes this year, I think it's the fourth straight time he kind of would do it. But in NFL history, he's still the leader, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't see a problem with him playing the way he's playing. I don't understand why people keep on saying what they're saying. I can care less these days, long as the Saints are winning. That's the main crust of the deal, right? I wanted to bring out two things before we sign off and give predictions. PFF says that out of the 132 edge rushers who have played 75 or more snaps, Saints have two of the best in the top 10, Marcus Davenport and Cam Jordan. I was surprised Trey Hendrickson wasn't in that mix. But Marcus Davenport, he grades out at 88, and which is fifth, and Cam Jordan at 82.1. I wrote about this before the season. I said Marcus Davenport is on the verge of having a great season. You see how disruptive he has been once he's been available. Like JD say, you got to be available, right? And I think you see them increasing his playing time as well. What are your thoughts before we sign off?
I love Marcus Davenport as a player, his physical abilities. But I'll tell you what, he has been an absolute beast the last 3 weeks, and each week has gotten better than the last. Davenport is a difference, man. We know Cam Jordan is what Cam Jordan is, and he finally seems to be heating up and playing at that Cam level again after a very, very slow start to the year. And Hendrickson is going to get his sacks and his pressures with that nonstop motor. Davenport, though, can be the difference maker for this entire defensive line, because you have to double team Cam Jordan, right? Even at this stage of his career. And you have to contend with the Saints defensive tackles who come at you in waves. That leaves Davenport with one-on-one blocking on the other side. Trey Hendrickson's beat his one-on-one blocking. He's done his job. Davenport's going to eat one-on-one blocking up. And now he's going to go up against Donovan Smith, the Bucs left tackle, who's had, shall we just say, at best, an inconsistent career protecting the passer. I love Davenport to put a lot of pressure on Brady in this one. Marcus didn't play in the first game, as you pointed out. Davenport could finally be rounding into that Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber player that the Saints dealt away 3 different draft picks to move up and get. When Marcus is on the field, there's no doubt that he showcases the kind of talent that caught the attention of Sean Payton and that scouting department. And I don't think that's ever been a question. It shouldn't have been a question to anybody. And like you said, they've been increasing his snaps steadily over the last 3 weeks. So hopefully, knock on wood, he stays healthy, because he can be the difference maker that takes your defense, takes your front seven up to an elite level. Yeah,
and especially when he's on those twists, he has been really productive. So PFF also said in 2020, he is number 1 in defenders of all NFL defenders with a 27.9 pass rush win rate. And he has a 19.7 pass pressure rate, which ranks number 3 in the NFL for all defenders as well. So pretty good for just what, 3 games back?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Bobo, tell everybody how they can find you on the World Wide Web.
Well, first, we want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. As we do, we love what you do for us every single week. I certainly would like to extend our love and our appreciation to John again for joining us tonight. Can't wait to do that again, my friend. As far as me, you can follow me on Facebook, Bob Rose, or over on Twitter at BobbyR2613. Obviously, all my media work I post on my personal page, but you can follow all, myself and all of us through the Saints News Network, as you know, which is literally available everywhere, or the Bayou Blitz group Facebook. Let me spit that one out again. The Bayou Blitz Facebook page and group. It is a growing group. We have such a great core of Saints fans there, NFL fans in there. So thank you guys for everything that you do for Kyle and myself. You make our job so much easier, and more importantly, you make our job so much fun. If you aren't a member, if you are involved in Facebook but aren't a member of the Bayou Blitz group, you give a shout out to Kyle or myself. We would love to get you involved. It's a really friendly Who Dat family.
Definitely. All right, Bob, we forgot to give our predictions. What's your prediction?
My gosh, I do. I think it's going to be tight for all the reasons that I just mentioned about 10, 15 minutes ago. I'm going to go hesitantly with the Saints coming out of this one with a 28-24 win.
Okay. I think it's going to be 27-24 Saints. Okay. And let's see, Jason, you gave yours 27-21. Okay. Cool. All right, guys. You can follow us at Saints News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Who's your mama? What's your mama? Any mama? Everywhere. We're at Saints News. We are on Sports Illustrated's team site. Go to si.com/NFL/Saints for the latest in New Orleans Saints news and updates from myself, John Hendricks, Bob Rose, Cola Antoine, and Brendan Borland. And we have some great interns. Those interns are doing good. I love those guys. Joe as well as Andrew. They have done a phenomenal job, as well as Sam doing a great job. So our interns do some good stuff and do some good writings as well. So we will have a replay. Okay. You guys want a replay of what we talked about tonight? Sure. We'll do that do that Friday and Saturday morning. How about that? That's when I'll do it. All right. I am Kyle T. Mosley. That is Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz, as well as the Saints News Network. Y'all have a good one. Y'all take care. Peace.